Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome to Guns N' Roses Central, and we're doing another episode of Guns N' Roses True Story. I know I've been focusing a lot on the Use Your Illusion era of the band, and I want to talk more about the early days, so today we're discussing Live Like a Suicide. So this was a 4-track EP released by Guns N' Roses in December of 1986. It was released on the Uzi Suicide record label that was actually owned by, or is part of Geffen Records. So when referred to by the band members when talking about the EP, they simply called it Live Like a Suicide, and the record itself was limited to only 10,000 copies and only came out on vinyl and cassette formats. Now this is a rare photo of the recording sessions from Live Like a Suicide, and according to Steven Adler's autobiography, the recording sessions were actually done at Pasha Studios in Hollywood. And a lot of people think that Live Like a Suicide is actually a live record, and it's not. A lot of the audience applause and cheering was actually pre-recorded, as Geffen engineers told them it would be too expensive to actually record a live record. So according to Duff McKagan's 2011 autobiography, the actual crowd noises were taken from a 1970s rock festival called Texas Jam. According to Duff, they thought it would be funny to put a huge stadium crowd in the background at a time when they were lucky to be playing a show to a few hundred people. So the EP featured 4 songs in total, 2 of which were originals while 2 were covers. So the EP featured Reckless Life, Nice Boys, Move to the City, and Mama Kin. Now Nice Boys was a Rose Tattoo cover, and Mama Kin of course was an Aerosmith cover, and it was rumored that Shadow of Your Love was also supposedly considered to be released on the EP, but I've heard from different sources that the band felt that Shadow of Your Love felt like it sounded too similar to Reckless Life. So this is another picture from the recording sessions of Live Like a Suicide, and Reckless Life is the opening track on the EP. It opens with Slash shouting, "Hey, Effers, suck on Guns and Effin' Roses," and you guys may not know this, but the song was originally written by Hollywood Rose, which included all the members of Guns N' Roses except Duff McKagan at one point or another. It was also included in the Hollywood Rose compilation, The Roots of Guns N' Roses, which came out years later. Now, in 1986, the members of Guns N' Roses were interviewed on KNAC Radio. Around the time Live Like a Suicide came out, and even before Appetite even came out, they didn't have a name for the album yet. They talked about re-releasing Live Like a Suicide at some point down the road. Here's what the band members had to say.
We're back with Guns N' Roses, and all the stuff on the EP. Can we expect any of this on your LP when that arrives?
No, definitely not. It'll be new stuff.
No, it's like this is
great stuff.
Like I said, there's going to be 15,000 copies out, and then possibly after the other record comes out, and then sales of that do whatever, then there's a possible chance that we'll re-release it if there's a demand for it.
I know they will.
We'll see.
You get 4 songs and a beautiful picture on this one, but the next one's going to be probably 10 songs, and it might even open up on the side with pictures and all that.
I doubt there'll be any covers on the other one.
Yeah,
there's covers on this that we wanted to put out because we do them live and the people like them live, and we kind of wanted to do this this is for you, and this is something that we've been doing in our set, because we never give anything.
There's songs that the kids always want to hear too,
According to Slash, who talked, about the album quite a bit, he said it was live, it was punk rock, and it was great. I really enjoyed it because it was fast and in your face. Live Like a Suicide is indicative of what the band was all about when we first got together. We didn't sit around in rehearsal studios saying we have to be like this or that. We wanted to go out and play live, and we would write songs real fast because we had already booked the gigs. We were an angry bunch of kids, and that EP means a lot to me because we wrote songs, got them together in an evening, and then went out and played them. So according to Ultimate Classic Rock magazine, Guns N' Roses had actually hired Alan Niven, who was like the band's first manager after they got signed to Geffen. And apparently he came up with the idea to release Live Like a Suicide. So he came up with a solution. He said, according to Slash's autobiography, Alan thought it was essential for us to get some product out while we still had a strong buzz in the industry, and it would keep the excitement alive while we recorded our full-length album, the guitarist wrote. So Guns N' Roses decided to release an EP on a Geffen-financed imprint of their own invention. It would appear to be live EP on an indie label, but in truth, it would be either. Slash continued, we called the label Uzi Suicide, and the EP was untouched demos of 4 songs we've been playing since our first rehearsal. And even back then, there were clues, though, that the results weren't actually recorded live, beginning with a full-fledged horn section blurring away through Move to the City. And then, of course, there was the question mark and exclamation mark strategically placed within the EP's title. Slash even talked about who financed the album, which may surprise some people. So talking about who financed the EP, Slash said, well, we did. We financed it off pretty much the bulk of the money that we had, accumulated there and here. So Izzy talked a bit about the EP, and he revealed in 1986 that some of the songs on our EP were written when Axl was in LA Guns, and Slash talked about why they released the EP by themselves when they had already been signed to Geffen, which at that time wasn't true. The EP was also released as part of Geffen's marketing plans. He said, because we wanted an inexpensive dedication to all the kids who helped us get by when we were really low and had no money and were living in abandoned apartments, the kind of record that not everyone will have because we're only printing 10,000 copies initially, although in other interviews I've heard Axl say they printed 15,000 copies. So when Live Like a Suicide came out in 1986, it sold out almost immediately in Hollywood, but crucially, it also found its way to the critics, with the band's first national and international reviews appearing in Rip magazine, Circus magazine, and in the UK's Kerrang, all of which at that point recognized Guns N' Roses as the real deal in its rawest form. Now, while everybody seemed to love the record, Axl actually was one who didn't necessarily like it. He said, "It's the most contrived piece of shit we've done," he said. "It ain't no live record. If you think it is, you're crazy or stupid." So Guns N' Roses played a gig in July of 1986 at the Troubadour in Hollywood, and at that gig, Axl thanked the crowd for helping them get signed to Geffen, and he also announced they would be releasing Live Like a Suicide before their first major album would be out. And actually, they played another gig at the Cat House in December of '93, which basically served as a listening party for Live Like a Suicide. So there had also been a rumor around the time that Paul Stanley of Kiss wanted to produce the EP, to which Axl said in 1986, "Well, we worked with Spencer Proffer on the demo tape, then Paul came to us because he was interested in producing. Slash had him come over and I sat down and talked production with him and played him the demo. He wanted to rewrite 2 of our favorite songs, so it was over right then and there." So in late 1988, Guns N' Roses would release GNR Lies, and at this point the band was, breaking big. They were getting really popular, but, a lot of kids who wanted Live Like a Suicide had trouble getting it because there was only 10 to 15,000 copies ever made, and people were selling them for inflated prices. So the band decided, let's just release them on GNR Lies. So here's a brief interview with Axl talking about releasing those songs on GNR Lies.
Axl filled us in on that.
Well, we have an EP out called Live Like a Suicide, and it's a 4-song EP, but what we're going to be doing now is releasing another EP called GNR Lies, and putting the 2 together, 4 on one side, 4 on the other. Yeah, the subtitle is The Sex, the Drugs, the Violence, the Shocking Truth, just because we really like that title.
And the last thing I want to leave you guys with is a video of my buddy Kevin. He's got an amazing Guns N' Roses memorabilia collection. He's got a poster of Live Like a Suicide, which was really hard to get your hands on, and he's actually got the album signed by all 5 members of the band. Here's his video.
Hi guys, this is Kevin from GNR Central. What I thought I'd do today is show you a little bit of some of the highlights of my Guns N' Roses collection with the few minutes that I have this evening. Just a few key points. Some very rare collectibles that are unique, and I thought I would start with this poster because this was the first official release by Guns N' Roses. The first release was, as you know, Live Like a Suicide. It was an EP, limited edition, December 1986, 10,000 copies on vinyl and cassette. And what you may not know is that they actually did release an official poster back in 1986 dedicated to the fans and all of the people that had helped put the EP together. So this is the poster. It is a poster that is of what also appeared on the cover of Live Like a Suicide with Duff and Axl, and there's 4 songs, as you know. And let me just kind of rotate this around here. It's a pretty good size poster, and you can see on the bottom it says, "This poster is dedicated to our friends for support in the streets as well as the stage." So this was a limited edition poster. It's over 30 years old, so I don't know how many exist, but I've never seen it anywhere else. I obtained 1 copy and I had it framed professionally. So again, this is the first official released poster by Guns N' Roses, 1986, promoting Live Like a Suicide. And then if we move along here to the next item, starting with, again, the early items, Live Like a Suicide, 1986. This is a signed Live Like a Suicide original. This is signed by all 5 members of Guns N' Roses, and this is very unique and very special. This was given to me by a friend named Ronnie Schneider, who was the first bassist, or the bassist for Slash's first band, Titus Sloan. So there's some history behind this, and again, if you take close-ups of the autographs, it's very unique because it was signed in a blue, I believe that's a blue ballpoint pen, and then of course the original Live Like a Suicide, and I had this framed professionally. So again, sorry for the reflection. I had it sort of plated up there, Guns N' Roses Live Like a Suicide, original signed 1986.